Tribewanted, the question that my mates and I were asking was, could we take an online community? And this was in the age pre-Facebook. Can you remember that far back? Yeah, it was 2006. And so we wanted to know whether you could take an online community, or whatever that was, people hanging out on the internet, and give them a headquarters somewhere in the world. And so my friend said to me, well, if we were going to do this, give them an actual base, why don't we do it on a desert island? Because obviously that's the next logical step from the internet community. And the reason he said that was because it's the opposite of an online community. It was the desert island where life, sort of, the Eden, Garden of Eden, the utopia, paradise. And so my background was in adventure travel and sort of that kind of ecotourism. And he was the online guy. So we kind of tried to see if we could put these two trends together. So we Googled islands, and we found one in Fiji via a island estate agent in Australia who we had to convince that we were real investors. That's a brilliant thing about the web. You can pretend you're someone you're not. We weren't serious investors at all. We just graduated and were sitting at home in England, and we went out to Fiji and shook hands with the local chief. He wanted to lease his land for tourism. We wanted to build a village on an island with his local community, and we launched Tribewanted.com and said, who wants to join in? It's 120 quid, you get a week on the island, you get a say in how we develop it. And people said yes, let's go.
It's a pretty awesome story. How long did it take from the first decision to actually being on, actually sitting there on the island?
So, from a business point of view, we were looking at a kind of, okay, we're going to put it online and we're going to start asking for people's money. How much goodwill time do we have before we have to actually say, okay, guys, now you can come and hang out on the island? And we reckon our goodwill time was 6 months. There wasn't any research into that; it was just an estimate. And we managed to get going on the island within 5 months. So we got enough money together, and we got 700 people signing up, spending between 120 and 300 pounds in the first 3 months. So that generated £100,000 revenue, which meant we could write a cheque for the lease for the land, which we didn't have when we launched online. So that was a bit of a blag, but we got that, and built our online community.
And in terms of the actual sort of business side of stuff, how did you cope financially to keep it going? I mean, obviously you're on an island. I'm not sure how internet access works out in places like that.
So I guess because of that fast growth, without much investment, and suddenly we had we had the backing of 700 plus people, and we had the lease for the land. We were lulled into a false sense of this is a brilliant idea and it's going to work. And we were estimating there'd be a tipping point around the 1,000 member mark that would then lead us to sell out all the places we need to and generate the revenue to run this thing for 3 years and basically bank the 3-year project. Unfortunately, just before we reached our tipping point, a 21-year-old in California wrote a blog saying that, he didn't say, he insinuated that Tribewanted was a scam. As I'm sure a lot of people out there were thinking, why don't you pay us some money online and come and stay on our island in Fiji? Yeah, the people that didn't doubt it had joined, but the majority were probably doubters and going to watch and see what happened. So he kind of articulated the thoughts of a lot of people online, and quite aggressively. And the interesting thing was that despite national coverage in papers in the UK and the US and elsewhere, despite going on breakfast television shows, despite having the backing of travel agents, despite the BBC signing on for a broadcast documentary, everyone believed the blogger in California. The minute he said, I reckon this thing's a scam, our membership sales went from £5,000 a day to less than £500 a day overnight, literally overnight, and we never recovered.
It must have been quite a tough low moment to deal with for the business.
Yeah, he hasn't been invited to the Vorovoro. People were saying to me at times, you should just get this guy there and prove it to him. I said, no, look at his... Anyway, so that shows you in hindsight what the internet can do. It can make you and break you overnight. Be ready for it. But so what we did then, that slowed up the cash flow enormously. So we had to get out to Fiji and get the project up and running. But then the real life investment, the real world investment, I should say, into the infrastructure. So compost toilets, buildings, water tanks, boats. We're building a village and a community. So labour. So that was really tough, and we started to claw back credibility, getting new press once the first members of our online tribe arrived on the island and started living there with us, the local Fijians. And we've managed to keep it going over the next 2.5 years. So we are, as of this summer, 2009, we will have had 1,000 members visit the island for an average of 2 weeks. So spending about £300, £400 with us. And generate a lot of jobs locally, build our village, and it's been a hell of an adventure.
How was the local Fijians? Were they not a little bit doubtful when you guys pitched up a couple of blokes from the UK scratching their heads going, let's build a village?
Well, this is it. And I think, this was the point that was lost at the start of the story, was actually that although here we are going, why don't we take an online community and put it on Desert Island? It was actually the local chief and his brother and his family that said, we would like to not set up an online community, but we'd like to start an eco-tour, we'd like to lease our land and start a tourism project here. And the interesting thing was, it was actually prophesied to the local chief, and that's why he put his island up for lease, because a mate of his came to stay once and said, started clearing the long grass down the beach, inland from the beach, and the chief sort of said to his mate, so why are you doing that? We live up here. No, this is remote. This is northern Fiji, and his friend turned around and said, "Well, look, Chief, we have to prepare. The world is going to come to Vorovoro. We have to get ready." And instead of the chief dismissing his friend, like, "What are you talking about, you idiot? Come back to the garden, chill out." He said, "Okay," and they cleared the land and they built 2 small Fijian huts and kind of waited for the world to come. And we didn't quite just turn up like that, but the chief's nephew was a little bit more worldly. He came back and sort of said, "Oh, it might help prophecy come true if we stick it on online, the lease online." So that's how we found it. So it was kind of a combination of prophecy and an email, and that took us to Fiji. But internet connection is a problem there. You're absolutely right.
And where are you guys taking it? What's the next step? Do you build a bigger island? Or?
No, I mean, I think the whole point of starting Tribewanted was to say, look, as we've seen since 2006, that online networks, social media, the web platform is creating huge opportunity to shape real world communities as well, and actually in a positive way. And so the point of Tribewanted was saying, can we have an adventure like we want to do anyway as travellers and everyone else? Can we educate ourselves, not just while we're physically on the beach in Fiji learning about local culture and sustainable living, but also before we go online and after we come back? And can we also use the story and the content? This is what's important here, is the content of the project. The local fishermen becoming storytellers online. Can we use that as a way of inspiring people to think about the lifestyles that we have and consumerism and the negative aspects of that in terms of the environment and socially and everything else? So that was the big idea. And we thought, well, if we pick an island straight up, it might get some attention. And it did. So we've got a platform now to hopefully replicate it.
And how self-sustainable is the island in itself? How much do you create your food and all the rest of it? How does the economics of that side work? Right,
so very briefly, water, we're 100% sustainable now. We collect rainwater and we have our own dam which we've built, so that's enough water for us in the gardens. But that's taken 3 years to get to. Food, 25% we grow on the island. It's not that easy because it's a very narrow island, it's sandy, so it's tough. But you learn about what the locals have to deal with, and we catch a lot of fish, so you get to spearfish if you come and stay with us. And otherwise we buy it from the local markets. Energy, there was no electricity there to start with, but we've now got a wind turbine and solar. And we're using biogas as well from the pigs that we've got on the island, which is quite cool. We've not quite got to human compost turning into cooking gas yet, and waste is the hard one. Waste is the hardest because there aren't recycling facilities in northern Fiji, and so it's all about minimising the waste and thinking about what we can do. But the great thing about an island in terms of learning about sustainability is that you see everything. You see life in literally in the space of a football pitch. You can see the whole circle of waste, food, energy, water, and it's great. And if it takes a return flight to Fiji for us to start to realise that actually everything's connected, every action, blah, 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 without preaching to people, then, that's made me realise a few things.
So,
yeah. and you get to meet these people who can. I mean, the best example I think in terms of how remote places, or it's not remote to the Fijians, but to us, and indigenous cultures and peoples around the world can inspire us, other than watching like a Bruce Parry series, is on the project in Fiji. When one of the older guys who had worked with us sadly passed away through old age, all these emails and donations came in through our online community to him, for his family. And these weren't from people who'd spent a week with him on the island. These were from people who'd never met him, but had been following his story through the project. And so it's like, hold on a second, here's a fisherman from an island in the Pacific who's inspiring people in New York and London and connecting them. And so online communities are niche networks connected to real places that aren't just disparate, they're just sort of fixed places, and stories I think can be hugely powerful. And I don't know, we've only tried it once, but the idea is to do it in other places. Well, Lord of the Flies almost came true, unfortunately, because the traditional food or feast in Fiji, as in New Zealand, is the earth. You cook in the earth oven and you kill a pig. So, in fact, when the BBC first turned up to start filming, we were running around with this dead pig. So it didn't look good. But that's how things work out there. So have people not turned on each other on a desert island? Because we live and work alongside the local people, and of course, they've lived and worked on islands for generations. And so I think that's something that we have to learn, because. And I got it a lot more in the States asked than I did in the UK, which was like, well, how are you going to survive, guys? There's no toilet there. It's like, well, people have survived all around the world and done a lot better without a lot of things, including the
There's no drive-through.
No, of course there's been tensions and challenges, but a lot of, in fact, the intensity and the conflict and the anger that has come up through this project in terms of debate about how we should do things has pretty much all happened online. So if there's one good thing about internet forums, is that they soak up all the anger, and then in the real world everyone's chilled out in Fijian and sit around under the stars.